B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach, shiur Torah, bruchim habayim. We are back here on our series of the in regards to KEDUSHA, holy intimacy, based on the Iggeret HaKodesh by the holy Ramban, written about 750 years ago. This Baruch Hashem, this series has certainly been a breakthrough for many people that have been paying attention to each shiur in their most personal parts of their lives. Both, married and single people are looking at intimacy in a completely different way. And Be'ezrat Hashem, tonight, this additional installment will take it even further. Tonight's shiur will be for the refuah shlema for Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Avi Mori David ben Nesria, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora. Also for the Ilui Nishmat of Tony bat Nesria, and for the Atzlacha Rabba for Marsha bat Julie, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides that continue to watch our shiurim, share our shiurim, contribute to the organization as much as they can, whether it be of monetary resources or their skills or both or anything else. So Baruch Hashem for all of that. Reminder for everybody as that's been sleeping under a rock for the last few weeks. The Gehenom movie campaign is about to reach a certain end in the next couple of days, where the first two options, which are for the larger dollar amounts of $150,000 and $25,000 for having your family name permanently placed in that movie in the beginning or in the end of it, or both, depending on which one you get, that closes off in the next 48 hours or so. A little less. So this is something that is not going to be available again for the English movie. We're considering possibly making it available for the other languages, because we're going to be translating or putting subtitles on this movie in other languages. But of course, this the English movie is certainly always the one that until now, Baruch Hashem, has reached the most amount of people. For anyone that's unfamiliar with the magnitude of the movies that our dear organization, Be'ezrat Hashem, and our team has produced over the years, just the last movie, the Tikkun Abrit movie, has already surpassed over 10 million views just online between our different YouTube channels. If you calculate the other features, the other things, the WhatsApps and the Twitters and the app and everything else, then certainly it's more, but nonetheless this is over 10 million. So I mean, just imagine anyone that would invest money into that, reaching into the neshama of 10 million different people. There's simply nothing like that in the world in regards to that particular issue. Certainly there are many different types of videos out there that reach billions of people, but usually they're not only full of junk, but they're full of sins. So the Gehenom movie is going to be unlike any of the other movies we've ever made, and Be'ezrat Hashem, anyone that has the ability should use that mind of theirs for the right reasons, and Be'ezrat Hashem, make the right choices, whether it's to invest in it or not. That's, again, everybody has to make their choices, but this is not an option that I see being ever available again. Aside from that, some of you asked me about the talit that I wore on during the high holidays in one of the videos. My big talit, Baruch Hashem, we just got some more delivered. These are custom-made talits that they make for us. You see the blue on them with the blue stones on a talit. It's the best talit I've ever had. It doesn't fall off and doesn't slide. It's a little expensive, but it's certainly worth it. So we have more of them. Anyone that wants to go online and get one of the talits, that's available too. Okay, let's just get into it. We have, Baruch Hashem, a lot of information here. Be'ezrat Hashem, we are both excited and trembling that the information will come out from our mouth like it's in the Torah itself. So, until now, we've seen the Ramban completely re-educate us and rewire our minds and our souls in regards to how we view, intimacy, the whole act of man and woman. Certainly, the act between man and man and man and beast is something that God Himself calls an abomination, and in fact, they are constantly mentioned, next to each other in the Torah, as well as in the written Torah, as well as in the oral Torah, where in the Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, page 54a, the Mishnah says, one who cohabits with another male or with an animal, and a woman who brings an animal upon herself, in all cases, the punishment is stoning. Why are these two things, or in essence, these three things, all put in the same sentence? I mean, if you ask your typical, homosexual promoter out there, why do they, what do they think about homosexuality versus bestiality? At least publicly, they'll tell you there's no comparison. I love him. He's my boyfriend. He's my husband. We're planning on having kids together from some puppy. We're all types of demented mindsets, but nonetheless, the Torah views it very, very differently. The Torah is from God. He's the one that makes the rules. He's the one that has the viewpoints that never change. And He views bestiality, which is man and animal, or woman with animal, and homosexuality as exactly the same thing. Both of them are considered an abomination, which means disgusting in the eyes of God. I don't know, whether someone is is religious or not. I don't think anybody would, quite frankly, want to be disgusting in the eyes of their Creator. And needless to say, both of them at the time of the Sanhedrin, would have gotten the death penalty that's the worst type, which the Gemara discusses. Which one of the death penalties is the worst, whether it's stoning or it's burning or hanging or chopping a person's head off? Which one is the worst? And the sages conclude that certainly stoning is by far the worst death penalty of all. And that's actually what a Mechalel Shabbat gets, and that's also what a homosexual or someone that commits bestiality gets. And of course, there's a few others that join that list. But nonetheless, the mindset of the world that we see at large today, whether it's the warped minds of Western society, where today they are not only expecting people to accept homosexuality as better than normal. It's not only something that's no longer in a closet. It's actually something that in their mind it's better than normal. They celebrate it. They tell you that you're supposed to celebrate it. At the same time, of course, pedophilia is rape and all types of sexual crimes are running rampant. Yet there is an outcry out there in the media, in the world at least, where they're saying, there's a certain fashion company that's full of tum'ah and run by Satanists that's promoting child pornography. This is terrible, horrible. And yes, although they're right, this is terrible, this is horrible, this is also hypocritical. Why? Because how do you dress your daughters like zonot, like prostitutes, and yet you claim that their version of prostitution is any different than yours? Your little girl is walking around practically with no clothes on. Your little girl is putting on makeup on before she even understands what a sexual drive is. Yet you are upset at someone that's in essence doing the same thing, just picking it up a notch. Quite frankly, I don't understand the hypocrisy here. But nonetheless, of course, pedophilia is disgusting. Pedophilia is forbidden. But again, there are different perspectives in the Torah based on the times, which perhaps we'll go into at some point. Well, you'll see that what we view as pedophilia today is, quite frankly, perfectly acceptable behavior in the previous generations. Not because chas v'shalom they were pedophiles, but because people in general, and the mentality of people was very different back then. So again, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll get into that at some point, whether it be today or another time. But nonetheless, the hypocrisy of the world has continued to grow, especially when it comes to the issues of morality. Homosexuality has always been viewed as a disgusting act by the majority of society, except, pockets of tum'ah, like, the generation of Noach that became too much of a pocket, was completely annihilated. The Sodom and Gomorrah was completely annihilated. Egypt, completely annihilated. The Greeks, the Romans, completely annihilated, and so on and so forth. And soon to be the other places in the world that promote homosexuality as a perfectly normal act. Again, this is something we spoke about some time ago in one of our public shiurim about the different rules that are in the Torah regarding incest and things of that nature, how it may seem unnecessary for us to repeat our learning about this topic each year in the Torah, yet we're actually seeing that society is becoming more and more in line with violating those parts of the Torah becoming acceptable behavior. So while people are crying foul about perhaps maybe this little mental case, making some anti-Semitic remarks, or some of his missionary friends trying to promote Christianity on his back, or the little poor kids that are being tortured by their own parents, using them as simply as sex tools, either for money or for other reasons. Yet at the same time, other parents that are crying foul are dressing their kids exactly the same way, just with different designs. All of this is one big mishmash of hypocrisy. And the only real truth that has never changed is the truth of the Holy Torah. Now, the truth of the Torah, unfortunately, is unknown to most people in the world, including its own people that received it, the Jewish people, including some of the religious people that study Torah and otherwise observe mitzvot. But the way the Torah views the issues of intimacy is very different than what most people actually understand, as we have seen so far in the first 8 or so lectures. And that's in essence what the Ramban is trying to teach us, as far as arriving at an ultimate goal of understanding how intimacy is actually KEDUSHA, it's actually considered holiness, but not because of the animalistic aspect of it, and not necessarily because of the reproductive aspect of it, but rather because of many of the other intricate details in between. So this far, we've discussed many of the subtopics in small segments. We've started the second chapter last week, where the Ramban tells us about the significance of the union between a man and his wife, and how, if done at the proper time, this makes a significant impact on not only what kind of child will come out of this, if one comes out, what kind of child will come out of this, but even more so, what kind of KEDUSHA it will actually produce in the world, that is both here as well as the worlds above. So, of course, this has a lot to do with the traditional Torah, that's the Pshat, the basic levels of the Torah, as well as the Midrash, as well as the mystical aspects of the Kabbalah, which again, Baruch Hashem, we have succeeded in at least doing our best to teach. Now, the main thing that the Ramban is now trying to get to the bottom of is to make sure that we remove all of the foreign thoughts that unfortunately many people have, and in fact entire religions have, such as Christianity, that the issue of intimacy is bad, is disgusting, is something that is degrading, and unfortunately there are some people that are otherwise decent people, otherwise kosher people, but have some type of spiritual defect. You can call it as a result of some type of trauma, or even just lack of learning, ignorance, whatever it is, different reasons for different people, where they literally are disgusted by the thought of intimacy, even with their own husband or with their wife. There are such cases out there. And one of the reasons that the Rambam starts this chapter about telling us about the issues of KEDUSHA between man and wife and the timing and how it's important, is to get to this next point of going and head first against the famous Aristotle, Imach Shimo v'zichro, who was a genius scholar in his days in certain respects, but a known heretic and a person that is detestable both by man and God. So he is the one that brought something into the world that was quoted by the Ramban, who preceded the Ramban. And the Ramban, who was a very, very big advocate of the Rambam's work, actually rebukes in this aspect where not initially it sounds like he is going against them, but later on we'll understand it to see that in essence he's just saying that the point that he made is not that it's not valid, it's not valid because he said it. And again, this may seem a little difficult to understand now, but we'll get to it Be'ezrat Hashem. So the Ramban ended off last week by telling us that it's important for us to know that if this matter was not of great holiness, then the union would not be called knowing. That the ultimate level for a person to reach in their life, the ultimate purpose of a person living in this world, both Jew or Gentile, is the knowledge of God. Not the belief in God, although that's admirable, but rather the knowledge of God. Because belief is something that is unfortunately something that can change. It's you believe that your friend will come on time. You believe that your boss will pay you. You believe that someone loves you. You believe that the food is going to taste good because it looks good. You believe these things. But then there's knowledge. Knowledge that your friend is on time because he's right next to you. Knowledge that your spouse loves you because you see how they behave already over an extended period of time. Knowledge that the food tastes good because you're chewing it. Knowledge is very different, and there's simply nothing that would compare to knowledge. And needless to say, there's nothing that can compare to knowledge of our Creator, knowledge of God. And that's the ultimate goal. The Ramban taught us so far that if the thought process that intimacy between man and wife was a degrading, despicable, disgusting, and anything negative, if that were the case, then how do you explain that God Himself uses the word knowledge to describe intimacy between man and his wife, whether it's with Chana and her husband, or it's with Adam Arishon and Chava, or other figures in the holy figures in the Torah when they are discussing that they're together, like in this week's parasha, Yaakov with his wives. This is knowledge. So the knowing is something that is the peak. So first and foremost, we already have a Torah proof that that obviously the mindset is very different. But again, this is a perspective of the Torah, which means that this has to be in accordance to the Torah. It's not all forms of intimacy, or I should say sexuality, are considered knowledge, are considered holy, are considered the peak, the greatest, and so on and so forth, but rather the ones that are described by the Torah, which is man with his wife in accordance to the different things that are being taught here, which is the right time, the right mindset, under the right premises. She's pure, she's not having a menstrual cycle, she went to the mikveh, they're permitted to each other, they're married, and so on and so forth. If it's some guy with his girlfriend, or some guy with a prostitute, or some woman with some guy she found on the street, or some guy she's cheating on a husband with, or it's just a bunch of animals that met each other 15 minutes ago, all of those things are forbidden, all of those things are abominations, all of those things are disgusting in the eyes of God and should be in the eyes of man that has purified himself or herself. Of course, most people don't view it that way because they have their own personal
viewpoints of things based on themselves. If one wants to align their mindset with the mindset of what God wrote in His Torah, then of course this is a transition period. Either way, we are now going to enter the next aspect of it, which is really trying to figure out, is intimacy actually animalistic? Is sexuality the way that the Torah is prescribing it, that it's supposed to be, that it was created? Is it animalistic? And if it is, how could it truly be knowledge? If it's not, why is there so much immorality in the world? Because certainly God created everything with a purpose. If you're telling me that intimacy is supposed to be the most extraordinary thing, that the highest level of serving God, the highest level of producing KEDUSHA, then why is God allowing all of this immorality, this homosexuality, this pedophilia, this filth, this garbage, all of this stuff? So this is an understanding that a person must get to in order to truly appreciate intimacy for what it is, and also in order to elevate themselves from whatever level they are, usually closer to the animalistic side, to the side of KEDUSHA, to the side of holiness. So the Ramban continues. The matter is not as the Rabbi is referring to the Ramban, the guide of Maimonides, deducted and thought as he wrote in the Guide to the Perplexed in volume 2, section 36, wherein he praised Aristotle for stating that the sense of touch is shameful for us, heaven forbid. So here the Ramban is going to town. First, he is not just going after Aristotle, he's actually going after his rabbi. Not his main rabbi, but obviously the Rambam is everybody's rabbi. But he is one of his biggest advocates. He defended his work, but he is calling out the Ramban for quoting the filthy, impure Greek, not because he's Greek, but because he was impure, because there are certainly some holy Jews that are from Greek backgrounds, but nonetheless, the Greek filth that caused damage to the Jewish people, that killed Jewish people, and so on, that Greek, that filth, that philosopher, that's the problem. Quoting him is the problem. And he says the following. He says, the Rambam quoted him in his Guide to the Perplexed in volume 2, section 36, where he praised Aristotle for stating that the sense of touch is shameful for us. Heaven forbid. The matter is not as the impure Greek said, for his Hellenistic statement has the taint of imperceptible heresy, because if that accursed unworthy Greek had believed that the world is renewed with a purpose, he would not have said such a thing. However, we of the tribes of Israel, the possessors of the Holy Torah, believe that God, may He be praised, created all as His wisdom decreed, and did not create anything shameful or ugly. For if the union between man and wife is repulsive, then the reproductive organs are also repulsive. The Holy One, blessed be He, created them by His word. As it says in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 6, He has made you and established you. And as the sages say in the Gemara Masechet Chulin, page 56b, that God created a specific purpose in man. Again, we're going to explain all of these. I'm just reading the whole section for now. And also in the Midrash Rabbah, Kohelet, in chapter 4, section 14, quoting Ecclesiastes 2:12, even that which has already been done teaches us that God and His celestial court considered and appointed each individual organ, how it should be made, and positioned it in its own place. If the reproductive organs are repulsive, how could the Creator fashion something defective or repulsive? Ad kan leshono. Up to here is what we're going to try, Be'ezrat Hashem, to cover tonight. So already we have the Ramban starting with a fire. All guns are blazing. He's not sugarcoating anything. He's not even going to try to skip this potential fight among people that misunderstand and make people that think he's calling the Rambam a heretic. He's going right after. He's like, Rambam, respect everything you do, everything you've taught, but here you made a mistake. You quoted Aristotle. And not only quoted Aristotle, you quoted one of the things that he said that is 100% heretical, chas v'shalom. Heretical. This is a mistake. Why is it a mistake? Well, first we have to see, what did this Greek say? What did he say? He said that the sense of touch is a disgrace. It's not something that you should be proud of. What are they talking about here? Let's see. The Aristotle, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, in his book of ethics, if you will, in the volume 3, section 10, 11. And this is based on the Racham's translation. And he says, hence the sense to which prolificacy is related is the most universal of senses. And there appears to be good ground for the disrepute in which it is held, because it belongs to us not as human beings, but as animals. So here, in essence, he's telling his people, his followers, not us, we're just reading it, that the sense of touch is disgraceful. Why? Makes you an animal. Makes you an animal. What's sense of touch? The issues of intimacy. You wanted to be intimate with your spouse. You're an animal, according to him. Now, of course, we're going to see how did he actually behave versus what he wrote, according to documented history. But nonetheless, first, this is what the premise is. Now, the Ramban quotes the following. He says the following in his Guide to the Perplexed, in volume 2, in section 36. And he's talking about, in essence, a person elevating themselves, making themselves much better than the way they were born. And he says the following. That is that the brain's parts, and because of its size and position, and is not affected by the hindrances due to temperament, which derive from another part of the body. In so many words, he's saying a person is supposed to elevate themselves in such a fashion that they're not making their decisions based on hormones or emotions. They're making intellectual decisions, which is something that we've discussed many times in the Jewish Ashkafa series. Thereupon, that individual that would obtain knowledge and wisdom until he passes from the potentiality to actuality and acquires a perfect and accomplished human intellect and pure and well-tempered human moral habits. Then all his desires will be directed to acquiring the science of the secrets of what exists and knowledge of its causes. His thoughts will always go towards noble matters, and he will be interested only in the knowledge of God and in reflection on his works, and on what ought to be believed with regards to that. By then, he will have detached his thoughts from and abolished his desire for bestial things, and I mean the preference for pleasures of eating, drinking, sexual intercourse, and in general of the senses of touch, with regard to which Aristotle gave clear explanation in the Ethics, saying that this sense is a disgrace to us. How fine is what he said, and how true is that it is a disgrace. And then he continues on and on about the elevation of the person. Now, which we'll get to again, continue in a little while. So here we see that the cursed Greek said that touch is a disgrace. Sexuality is a disgrace. And the Rambam quoted him. And the Ramban, Nachmanides, is very upset about that. Because he says it cannot be. That thought is heretical. Now, first and foremost, we have to understand, why does Aristotle even find it disgraceful? Aristotle, in his arrogance, wanted people to believe that they are superior, super. They have the ability to, in essence, be like deities, and their desires are holding them back. And in fact, the most disgraceful is the sexual desire, because while all desires make a person vulnerable because he depends on them, this one is, in essence, above them all because it makes a person more vulnerable than others in a quicker fashion. Desire for food can have just so much impact on a person, whereas a desire for intimacy is certainly something that can cause a lot more damage in a shorter time frame. And everyone, I'm assuming, understands what I mean. So he's saying that it's shameful because it's something that man depends on, and since he depends on it, he's vulnerable because of it. Because if he doesn't get it, certainly it influences his or her actions. Hence, his conclusion that it is disgraceful. Now, the Ramban says this could not be. This is heretical. Why? Because we, the tribes of Israel, the possessors of the Holy Torah, believe that God, may He be praised, created everything in His wisdom. So what does Aristotle believe? He says, this unworthy Greek, he doesn't believe that God created everything and is with a purpose, or he believes in there's an ultimate purpose for each person to serve God and mitzvot and everything else. He has his own philosophical, warped mindset that has misled countless people, and even he himself, even Aristotle himself, admitted is completely wrong towards the end of his life in a letter that he wrote to his top student, Alexander the Great. This is actually quoted in the Yalkut Me'am Loez over there. I've quoted it in the past. This was a published maybe about 300 years ago or so by Rav Kuli. But also this is something that is documented throughout history. You could a letter where Aristotle in essence says that all of his work is garbage. Everything should be burned. No one should learn it. Anyone that does learn it will get punished. Why? Because he discovered the truth of the Torah. Discovered the truth of the Torah. Now, this is a letter that he wrote his top student, Alexander the Great. Now, this Greek didn't change his work. He just wrote this in a letter that, Baruch Hashem, a copy of that is still available in the world. But his work today is what people view, is what people learn from, is what people admire. And it's that exact work that is the problem. Because if people follow Aristotle, they get to start thinking things that are heretical. How could it be that believing that sexuality, the union between a man and his wife, is disgraceful? Why is that heretical? Because what you're saying is that God created something with a negative purpose, or without a purpose, or something that is, in so many words, only there to cause damage, and there's no benefit in it. That is certainly not possible when you believe in God. Now, of course, a person could say, yeah, but there are a lot of negative things in the world. You have the diseases, the cancers, the AIDS, the sexually transmitted diseases that Shem Yishmol, the viruses, the vaccines, the terrorists, the terror attacks, the cheating, all of these negative things that the Torah warns us about, and society sometimes warns us about, sometimes admires and makes movies about. Needless to say, there are certainly many negative things. Yes, but even those negative things were creations of God put into the world because they have a positive ultimate purpose behind them. Now, you could say, well, how could cancer be negative? The person died. Well, one simple reason is the fact that God wanted the person to die, and this was a way to kill them and bring them suffering before he killed them, in order to clean up their sins so they could go to have a lesser statement in Gehenom, or no statement in Gehenom and go straight to heaven, or to simply punish them enough to cause them to do tshuva before they die, and many, many other endless reasons in his endless calculator that God has. The point is that, God doesn't need an explanation, but there are certainly people that understand the different parts that God showed us from his rule book of how he has his creation. We know that everything has a positive purpose. So to say that this is disgraceful is saying that a lot of things are disgraceful, a lot of things are negative and without purpose, and that is certainly heretical. So the Ramban is saying now that we obviously believe that God created everything, and there is no such thing as him creating something without wisdom or something that is solely to be shameful or ugly. There is no such thing. For if union is repulsive, then the reproductive organs are also repulsive. If the union between a man and his wife is disgusting, is disgraceful, then that means that the same body that all men have and all women have things that are disgusting on them. Not because they have done something to make it disgusting, but they're in essence born disgusting. But yet, God doesn't say that he created a bunch of disgusting things. In fact, he says it's in the image of God. He created man. Not physical image, rather it's talking about the deciphering right and wrong. But nonetheless, there is a significance to the image, the physical image of man and woman. And he brings verses to prove this. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 6, HaKodesh Baruch Hu says to us through Moshe Rabbeinu, he has made you and established you. This, the sages teach us that every single part of your body was created by God with wisdom, with a purpose that is positive. Not something that is going to make you look disgraceful as the ultimate reason. Now, even if a person would say, wait, but there is a Gemara, and I believe it's in Masechet Bava Kama, where HaKodesh Baruch Hu looks at one of the wicked kings that thought of himself as a god. And HaKodesh Baruch Hu sends the prophet Yecheskel. It says to him, Bechani stakalti ubarati nekavim nekavim. When I made creation, when I was creating everything, I looked at me creating you in the future, and because of you, I created the orifices in the body. So you see that all of my beautiful creations that you consume come out disgusting. Everything that all the beautiful things, you take beautiful apple, beautiful banana, anything that you take, it's beautiful. You consume it, when it comes out of your system, it's as disgusting can possibly be. I made that term because of you. Why? Because I knew that one day you're going to be there and you're going to be so arrogant, you're going to think that you're God, but every time that you say that you think that you're God, you still have to go to the bathroom and be reminded that whatever you really produce behind closed doors is really truly disgusting. And God doesn't produce disgusting. Of course, you could say, yes, that's negative. No. Why is it not negative? Because that very same digestive system allows us to, first and foremost, live. Second of all, identify disease, identify all types of illnesses. Allows us to do a lot of different things that would not be possible. First and foremost, enjoy life. One of the things that I learned recently is the secret reason behind the tishes that the rabbis have in Chassidut, or that the Mekubalim, when they have a different, they're about to give people a blessing. Usually there's a feast. The Baba Sali was known to have these feasts literally on a regular basis. Many other Mekubalim, have done it over the years and still do it to this day. We also see from last week's parasha, Yitzchak says, "I'm about to die," and then he tells Esav, "Go get me, a couple of game, two deers, so I could eat them." I mean, last I checked, somebody's about to die. Last thing they're thinking about is eating. And needless to say, eating two animals? I mean, usually, it's one is already too much for a single person. Now, of course, the bodies have changed and so on and so forth. But the point is that this doesn't seem right. If you're saying I'm about to die, why are you asking for food? And not only food, a whole feast. And what does that have to do with blessing? Why just give me a blessing now? I'm here, I'm right in front of you. No, say you, Chazaku Baruch, say something. Why do I have to feed you? So the Chachamim teach us, in order for a tzaddik to really bless somebody, they have to be happy. They have to be in a state of joy. And there is no state of joy without food. No state of joy without food. If a person eats, and it's good food, and it's obviously with KEDUSHA, there's both a spiritual and a physical joy. A spiritual and a physical pleasure that elevates the soul, elevates the neshama of that tzaddik, whereby when he blesses a person, that blessing has much more significance, much more power to be fulfilled. This is the reason why the Hasidim have the tishes before they get the blessings from the rabbi. They get, the rabbi eats a few things This is why the Mikubalim do it. They have these feasts. It's not like the Baba Sali was weighed 600 pounds with all of these feasts. If anybody ever saw a picture of the Baba Sali, he was a very, very small man as far as stature, the physical stature. But as far as feast, there was always something. There was always something going on. Why? This has a Masoret all the way to our Torah that we learned actually from Yitzhak Avinu. You have to elevate the body and the soul. And then you can give people a blessing. Today, unfortunately, the world is upside down. Usually people come to the rabbi and they ask for a blessing. And sometimes after they ask for a blessing, they just simply walk away. There's no food. There's no check. There's no nothing. Sometimes, depending on the blessing, if it's a good blessing, they'll throw them an envelope with a few dollars. If it's not such a good blessing, they'll keep the envelope in the pocket for a different rabbi and just take whatever change they have in the other pocket and just give it, So, people, a little bit different than they're supposed to be. But the key is to understand is that this is something that we learn about because, again, it is not that the rabbi is hungry all the time, the tzaddik is hungry all the time, that Yitzchak is hungry all the time. It's simply an understanding of how KEDUSHA works. How KEDUSHA works. So, here, we see that this body that has an orifice, that whatever comes out of it is filthy, produces a whole lot of positives. Whether it's, again, identifying disease and the likes, or it's actually having the ability to give you a blessing so you will merit to have a child this year. So you'll merit to succeed in your studies. So you'll merit to find your zivuk after all of this time of loneliness. So you'll merit to do whatever it is that you will merit to do. And of course, those people that believe in blessings from the tzaddikim, those blessings typically come true. A person that comes to a tzaddik without believing the blessing, you're wasting your time and your money. There was one time a person that came to the Baba Sali, Alav Shalom. So everyone understood that the Baba Sali was not just a tzaddik, a kadosh. He was an extraordinary Talmid Chacham. He already became a dayan at the age of 20 years old. He was the Av Bedin. He was Kodesh Kodeshim. After a very long trip, one time that literally took, I think it was something like a day and a half trip. When he arrived to the room, they showed him the room, and everyone, closed the door, expected the Baba Sali to be resting. But of course, the kids wanted to peek to see how does the Baba Sali sleep? How does he sleep? How does this holy person sleep? And what they saw changed their life, because the Baba Sali didn't sleep. And instead, as soon as he got into the room, took out his rug, put it on the floor, sat on the floor, and started learning Torah non-stop until the next morning. Went to the mikveh, went to pray. When did he sleep? Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. Yeah, but you just went on a trip. You're physically tired, like a regular person. Yeah, like a regular person in your mind, like a regular person. So when a person comes to the Baba Sali one time and asks for a blessing, and the Baba Sali gives him a blessing. He gives him a bottle of water. He says, drink this water, and B'ezrat Hashem, make a blessing on it, and B'ezrat Hashem, everything's going to be okay. So the guy leaves and starts talking in his car to the people that he's with. Upset. It's a scam. What is that? I paid $100 to whatever money that he paid for this bottle of water. I get it for free at home. What do I need this for? What is this? What is that? All of a sudden he sees somebody chasing after his car. Pulls over. It's the Baba Sali's Gabai. Comes up to his car, takes his money, gives it to him, Give me the bottle of water. What'd I do? Says the Baba Sali doesn't need your money. Doesn't need your money. If you don't believe in the blessings, we'll take the water back. Yeah, but he didn't say next to the Baba Sali. You don't have to say next to the Baba Sali for him to know. And this is the ways of the tzaddikim. Now, the Ramban here is telling us that if the union is repulsive, then the reproductive organs are repulsive. But yet the Torah says that He made you and He established you. And then our sages teach us in Gemara Masechet Chulin, page 56b, that God created a specific purpose in man. What does it mean that God created a specific purpose in man? Chachamim teach us on this Gemara that everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into your body, all of those pieces of your body, all of those tendons, those ligaments, the bones, the different organs, and so on and so forth, every one of them was put at a specific place for a specific reason that were it to be manipulated, man could not continue existence. If people simply decided to become more barbaric than what they already are, and just decide to take out one kidney out of every baby, or one lung out of every baby, because, once a person grows up, technically they could live off of one lung and one kidney. And you could even cut the liver in half. So they figured, you know what, let's just start early. This would destroy mankind. Even if it was one of those things. Even if they decide, you know what, just like the style in clothing changes, people used to wear clothes, and that was fashionable. Now, the less clothes they wear, that somehow becomes fashionable. So, let's also make a fashion statement. There's one idiot rapper decided to make a fashion statement by spending most of his money until he loses all of it and put a diamond in his forehead. But literally, surgically putting a diamond in his forehead, like one of the statues from previous generations. Now, of course, this person is guaranteed to be broke and dead, within a relatively short period of time. He's not going to live a full life. Not because of me, but because of him. And certainly he's going to lose all of his money, and one day his embarrassment will be much greater than it already is for his stupidity, where he's going to have simply a hole in his head exposed because he had to sell the diamond. But nonetheless, this guy wanted to change his body, wanted to put a diamond in his head. Other people want to do other things to their bodies. They do all types of manipulating things to their bodies on the surface. Fine. God says that if you started changing the inner mechanics of the body, and you decide that, we'll make a new fashion statement. The heart doesn't feel good over here. Let's put it down. And the stomach, let's make it closer to the mouth. So that way, you could chew and digest faster. Chew, digest. And then maybe the lungs, let's put the lungs, maybe we'll put them in the back. And then the kidneys, let's put them by the feet. Figure, realign. Fashion statement. We'll put Nike on it. Or we'll put yo-yos. Yayo. What the hell is his name? Yay. Kanye. Like Cain and Evel. Cain. That's his real name. Cain. So Cain, we'll put Cain's brand on there. What do you think about that? You say, it's pretty fashionable. Well, guess what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, man will cease to exist. Could never work. Why? Because the Creator Himself put a signature on the creation, putting every single thing in the place that it can exist, both inside your body as well as the outside world, where anyone that studied a little bit of astronomy even if they watch some of our shurim about different Torahs and science, knows that it's a scientific fact that out of this enormous, immeasurable universe, full of stars and moons and planets and all types of things that people are trying to figure out, the only confirmed place that there is life is exactly where we live, on Earth. And in fact, it is the only place where Earth can exist. Where if we were any other place in the entire universe, man could not exist. And I don't mean any place in the Earth, like let's just go 100 million light years that way or 100 million light years that way. No. I mean, if the Earth was just a few measures of, let's say, degrees, if you will, a few degrees closer to the sun, the Earth will dry up and man will die. A few degrees further from the sun, Earth would freeze and man would die. Anywhere else in the universe, similar types of impacts would affect man. Meaning that out of all of this immeasurable universe, everyone understands the only place that man can exist is exactly where it is. So when people ask, oh yeah, but if there's no people and aliens and all types of stuff that they saw in the movies in all these other planets, why did God create all of these other planets? Why do you think that you have to have people somewhere in order for it to have a purpose? Why can't the purpose be you and your friend and your enemy and your country and your people and your children and your friends' children? Why couldn't it be that everything is for here? Oh no, come on, it's too big of a world for this. No. In your mind, there has to be somewhere else. Because you cannot accept that God made this world the one where you have to toil, serve Him in order to achieve the ultimate purpose. And there's no outside place that would affect your purpose. You yourself have your purpose in your hands. Whether you fulfill it or not is in your hands. You cannot blame a different planet or a different star or a different sun or the atmosphere or global warming or the sanitation department and whether they're really recycling for the last 30 years or it's just simply another way for the union to make money. No. All of that is not going to affect your purpose. What's going to affect your purpose is how you live your life. Is it in accordance with God or not? Are you trying to attain KEDUSHA, holiness, or are you at one, at peace with the tum'ah and the impurity that you are swimming in? Are you serving God or going against Him? The aliens you saw in the movies, not going to affect your life, other than simply wasting a few hours of your life watching these movies and these stupid stories that people have. Not going to affect your life. As far as your purpose, what can affect your life is how you behave, how you manage your time. So now, here the Ramban already brings a couple of sources. And if that weren't enough, he brings another source, Kohelet Rabbah, that brings Shlomo HaMelech's wisdom of Ecclesiastes. Says that even that which has already been done teaches that God and His celestial court considered and appointed each individual organ how it should be made and positioned in its own place, like we just said. But even on the exterior aspect of it, where a person could say, yeah, but why didn't God not, I don't know, maybe you would put our nose on our cheek. Or perhaps put our nose behind our head. That way, you want to smell something, want to taste something, nothing's in the way. You know, sometimes somebody has a runny nose. Food can become disgusting maybe. So, let's just put the nose out of the way. Or you know what, best yet, put it on your hand. Handheld nose. Hey, you have flowers? What kind of flowers you have? Let me see. Sounds reasonable. Yeah, but if that were the case, remember those taste buds that you have? They're gone. Why? Your smell has a lot of impact on your taste buds. What about your ears? Why don't you just put your ears by your feet? That way, you could both listen to the guy that's talking in front of you, and also you can see what kind of conversation the ants and the all types of vermin, what kind of conversation they're having. Really get a good full picture of what's going on in creation. Well, that would be nice in a cartoon, but in real life, if your ears weren't here, you wouldn't be able to walk straight. You wouldn't be able to function because they give you the ability for the body to have balance. What if the eyes? Perhaps, maybe the eyes should, be like the horse's eyes. Right on the sides. See, 360. Back and forth. How about that? If you're a horse, perhaps if people continue behaving like they do, they'll come back as a horse. What do we need this extra hair on our head? Eyebrows. What do we need eyebrows? You ever notice that the people that don't have eyebrows tend to sweat less? Notice that? There's a reason. Because the eyebrows help that sweat not get into your eyes. And people that have less eyebrows typically tend to sweat less. But needless to say, there are endless amount of purposes for each and every single body part, inside and outside, and exactly where it is. Not only its function, of where it's located. Where if you were to change it, major ramifications would take place to the point where a person would not be able to function. This is also one of the arguments that destroys the survival of the fittest and evolution, all of that nonsense, mumbo jumbo atheism, because creation couldn't have reached where it reached if it wasn't created this way. For example, if a giraffe had to evolve from some amoeba that eventually became a lizard, that eventually decided to reach up for the sky to eat the highest fruit, it wouldn't exist. Wouldn't be possible. Why? Because, you see, the neck of the giraffe is so big that HaKodesh Baruch Hu had to put a unique mechanism in its heart and brain in order for it to handle reaching or lowering its neck. Because if it lowered its neck and the blood of its body would go down that neck the way it's supposed to, like other animals, it would die on the spot. And if every time he would raise his neck, the blood would rush down from the brain, it would die on the spot. So there is no such thing as the giraffe evolved. It's not possible. It's not possible for a giraffe to evolve. And the same thing goes with all of the other creations. It's just that, people have to calm their conscience and also their banker that's planning for them to buy more things with the more money that they get from government grants and heretic grants and atheist grants. So they have to make more and more theories that are anti-God. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, put every single one of his creations exactly where it is, for a reason. And now, we have to understand then, that what did the Rambam really say here? What did the Rambam really say here? So if we actually look further into the Rambam, we'd understand that the Ramban is not disagreeing with the Rambam completely, in a sense that saying that everything he wrote is wrong. He's in essence disagreeing with him quoting Aristotle. Because what the Rambam is in essence teaching here is how a person can elevate themselves to be above an animal. Because if you are comparing yourself to an animal, the senses that you have that actually make it seem that you enjoy more than the animal are the sense of sight, smell, taste, and listening. If you listen to a song, certainly it impacts you a whole lot more than it's going to impact some giraffe in Africa. If you taste your wife's favorite dish that she makes you, certainly it's going to impact you and even your emotions a whole lot more than it's going to impact some kangaroo in Australia. If you see something beautiful, certainly it can impact the rest of your life a whole lot more than it's going to affect some lion that's looking at a zebra. Because the thing that you're seeing could be your future spouse. Whereas the lion, even if he sees a female lioness, he could think nothing but one thing. Will she allow me to mate with her? If yes, good. If not, next. Whereas you, seeing somebody, could change your life. Even more so, seeing something that's a view. The lion goes from his habitat and you put him in the middle of New York. He's not really impressed. Aside from wanting to eat everybody, nothing impressive. You go to the lion's habitat and you're going to think it's the most beautiful thing in the world. Wow, look at the magnificent creation. Look how big the sky is. Look at all these animals. Oh, look at those trees. And look at this and look at that. Do you think the lion looks at any of that? No, he sleeps 20 hours a day. He sleeps 20 hours a day, literally. Doesn't care what the thing looks like. In fact, if you move him out of his habitat, he does not enjoy New York or some zoo that you put him in. All he thinks about is food and mating. So the enjoyment of the eyes certainly is something that the man gets, while the animal doesn't enjoy it. They use it for survival. They use their hearing for survival. They use their taste for survival. Does it have poison? Does it not have poison? They're not, people that, put things into, oh yeah, this is my dog's favorite dish. She really likes it. You're sick. If you put your dog's own vomit there, it would also really like it. It's a reality. Dog vomits, he'll eat the vomit. In fact, if he's young enough, puppy, he'll even eat his own fecal matter. Why? It's a dog. Doesn't have a favorite food. No, my dog is different. You need to have kids. No, I have kids. Have more. Because you're starting to treat your dog like it's human. That's a problem. But nonetheless, many people do it. They even put clothes on their dogs and put them in little baskets. Oh, my dog likes to be in the basket. No, it just thinks you're stupid. Because you put him in a basket. When he has 4 legs. Maybe he should put you in a basket. But this is people. So out of the main senses, we see that man enjoys the senses more than animal. But yet, when it comes to sexuality, it would appear that man and animal are the same. Animal is doing it for procreation. Man is doing it for procreation plus pleasure. But nonetheless, whatever pleasure they get is the same. So it would behoove you to try to distinguish yourself from the animal with your other senses. Because if this is the way you behave, where your intimacy with your spouse is simply for the sake of reproduction or physical pleasure, you're really no different than an animal. And if you want to attain this elevated status of spirituality, of intellect, of wisdom, certainly you have to change that. And that's in essence what the Ramban is saying. Where he continues and he says, and it's known that with regard to these 3 aims set forth by us, namely the perfection of the rational faculty through study, the perfection of the imaginative faculty through natural disposition, and the perfection of moral habit through the turning away of thought from all bodily pleasures and putting an end to the desire for various kinds of ignorant and evil glorifications, there are among those who are perfect very many differences in rank, and on the differences in rank with regards to these aims, there depends the differences in rank that subsist between the degrees of all the prophets. In so many words, the Rambam is saying, if a person wants to elevate themselves, they cannot act like a beast. Your intimacy cannot just be just for physical pleasure, because even Aristotle knows that if it's just physical pleasure, it's a disgrace. If you want to distinguish yourself from the beast, at the very least, become superior in your other senses. But since your other senses don't require superiority, you're born superior to them, you're enjoying the other ones, the only thing that's left for you is the way you treat intimacy. And if you treat intimacy like a beast, there's nothing that's disgraceful. There's really no difference between you and the animal. Pound for pound, if you calculate it, what you have to use, what they have to use, no difference. But if you want to reach this higher level of perfection, then certainly you have to make those changes. Like the ones we've learned from, like the great ones that we've learned from. So who is he comparing us to? Who is he comparing us to? Who is he? He gives the examples of these prophets. First ones he mentions is Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov our father, who as great as he was, his superiority of intellect, of holiness, of prophecy, was hurt when one of the necessary steps was not done. When, the Rambam says, when he was sad about his son, Yosef, his prophecy was no longer the same. Meaning that even if a person reaches this highest level, they have to stay that way in order for everything else to work. Now, when it came to intimacy, from the surface of things, look, Yaakov had 4 wives. Yeah, but you also know that when he blesses Reuven, his firstborn son, he says, "You are the primary of my strength." Meaning that the first seed that ever came out of my body created you. Reuven. How old was Yaakov? 87 years old. 87 years old, and a seed did not leave his body. Not intentionally or unintentionally. Baruch Hashem, we've helped countless people overcome the addiction to wasting seed through the movie Tikkun Abrit, the over 100 or so lectures we've made about the topic. But yet, every single day, there are new people that reach out asking for help. Some are people we already know, some are new. Because they watched the movie, they watched the lectures, but they're having a hard time. What? You're 87 years old? No, I'm 15. Okay, so what's the problem? Oh, I've been holding myself and doing great, and I don't know what I need some chizuk to keep going. How long have you been going? 3, 4, 5, 6 years? No, change the year part. 3, 4, 5, 6 months? No, change the month part. 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks? Yeah, well, one more change, Rabbi. Days? Kind of, yeah. Well, my friend is struggling with 3, 4, 5 hours, so I'm at least doing better than him. Yaakov Avinu held himself for 87 years. Ishtabach Shemo La'ad. Yaakov Avinu held himself for 87 years. But yet, after overcoming all of these tests, after elevating himself, learning Torah for 14 years straight at the yeshivat of Shemen Ever, after leaving his father's house, before arriving at Lavan's house, and going through a 20-year tikkun with him, Yaakov Avinu studies Torah for 14 years straight without sleeping. Yet after all of that, after the tikkun of his brother Esav that tries to kill him, after the tikkun of Eliphaz, his brother's son, trying to kill him but instead taking all of his money, and when he sees a woman that he already knows through prophecy is going to be his wife, he cries because he cannot offer her anything. He can't give her anything. He's homeless and broke because Eliphaz, his student, stole all of his money. He ends up working for our crooked father Lavan, who cheats him over 100 times. After fighting and beating the angel, after facing Esav himself, after overcoming the obstacles of obstacles, the prophecy that he gets to is minimized because he wasn't happy. Well, quite frankly, who would be happy if their son was thought to be dead? Needless to say, unknown. But for 20 years, the prophecy of Yaakov was minimized because his perfection was minimized. Moshe Rabbeinu, the prophet of all prophets, no one had prophecy like Moshe Rabbeinu. No one will have prophecy like Moshe Rabbeinu. Even the Mashiach will not be like Moshe Rabbeinu. Face to face, I spoke to him, God says. Like a friend speaks to another. Moshe Rabbeinu, Kodesh Kodeshim. The Rambam says, even his prophecy was minimized, was no longer the same after the disastrous incident of the spies until the whole generation of the desert perished. I mean, the entire time, 40 years they're in a desert, the vast majority of that time, the prophecy of Moshe Rabbeinu is no longer the same as it was in the beginning. Why? Because of the enormous impact it had on Moshe Rabbeinu. So, the Rambam, what he's in essence saying here, if you want to reach prophecy, if you want to reach the ultimate level of holiness, of sanctity, that's what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you can do it. I'm not telling you you should do it. What I'm telling you is this is the map. But it has to have a beginning point. It has to have an end point. The end point is our forefathers. And even our forefathers, we can see that Hashem shows us that He required perfection from them. Just because they were righteous and perfect in so many things doesn't mean that He let it go. The opposite. He measured them even more closely. Needless to say, that you're nowhere near the level of their righteousness, their holiness. You haven't overcome even a fraction of their tests. But God is not expecting you to overcome their tests. The only thing He's saying, don't treat intimacy the same way that the wildebeest and the lion treat intimacy. That's it. Because even Aristotle, the cursed Aristotle, knows that if that's the way you treat intimacy, you're an animal. It's disgraceful. That's what the Rambam is saying. So the real issue that the Ramban has with it is not with the Rambam per se, but the fact is, why'd you use Aristotle as a source? You already have enough yourself. Because you arrived at the right conclusion because you have the mindset of Torah. Aristotle, he arrived at his conclusion because of his heresy. Because the Rambam doesn't agree with everything that Aristotle says, chas v'shalom. He's just simply saying that the issue of physical pleasure being a priority does not distinguish you from being an animal. And the Ramban says you didn't need to use him as a source. Because Aristotle is using reasoning of heretics in order to arrive at that conclusion, and therefore should not be used. Now, the truth be told is that Aristotle, like all other wicked men, HaKodesh Baruch Hu promises that those that desecrate Hashem's name, He embarrasses them in public. You see this more and more in society today. People that desecrate Hashem's name, when their end comes, it comes publicly. Whether it's a public demise, a Ponzi scheme, people every other day, famous billionaires and millionaires and celebrities are being exposed for their long list of crimes, whether it's raping women or taking advantage of them or pedophilia, or stealing money from people, or the government. I mean, every other day there's a new cover story of one of these former titans that is simply, no longer viewed favorably by anyone. One of the guys, I remember I read his book and then I met him and was completely unimpressed by him. Is a guy that is a very good investor in the stock market, but unfortunately a very stupid one in life. He's a Jewish guy that's an atheist, but yet he funded one of the things that helped a lot of Jewish people travel to Eretz Yisrael. Unfortunately, most of them it's just for this purpose of making sins between girls and boys, but nonetheless, this guy was viewed as, a historically one of the greatest investors, also viewed as someone that gave a lot of charity and a nice person and so on and so forth, only to arrive at a whole slew of lawsuits later in his life, which in essence is supposed to be the peak of the honor that a person is supposed to get, is during the later part of their lives. Slew of lawsuits over the last 3-4 years of different people from either organizations that were talking to him about donations or people that worked with them in some capacity or another, of all of the horrific sexual things and crazinesses that he talked about inappropriately. So instead of getting to the highest level of honor during the latter part of his life, he's getting to the highest level of disgrace. And this is not one story and not 2 stories and not 3 stories. There's another guy, another guy was announced, I believe, today or last couple of days, guy Leon Black, also a famous investor. He's getting sued by a bunch of people for raping a bunch of women. What happened? Where did they all go? Hashem kept him on the side. Let him build himself to its peak. Then we'll crush him. Just like Haman. Just like Haman. Same thing with Bill Cosby. Same thing Michael Jackson. Same thing with all of these criminals. One after another. Jew or not. Builds them up, builds them up, builds them up to the peak. Bah! That's the way of God. Desecrate HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. The bigger the desecration, the bigger the disgrace. And that's just the beginning of punishment. Now, Aristotle was the same. While he got a lot of respect during his lifetime, one of the reasons why many people followed him is because Alexander the Great, most powerful man in the world at the time, was his top student. And Alexander the Great was enamored by the wisdom that would come out of his lips. Look, he's like a divine. He knows this, he knows that. And Alexander the Great was a very smart person. Homosexual, or bisexual, because he also had a wife too. But nonetheless, the Alexander had a wife, and the queen hated his teacher, hated Aristotle. And of course, Alexander the Great argues with her that she's just a woman, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But this is one of the mistakes of many men, that they think that women always don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes they don't, but quite frankly, many times you'll find that your wife knows a whole lot more than you about judging people. Because a woman has a sixth sense when it comes to judging people, especially a husband's friends or co-workers and so on. You ever considering a partnership with somebody? Before you even consider signing anything, introduce this person to your wife. Don't need to talk, a whole little conversation, something. Literally, 2 seconds. Then go back, talk to him, continue talking, whatever you want to talk about. Tell him you'll go back to him. After you finish, go to your wife. So what do you think? In 2 seconds, she'll tell you. She tells you no, it's no. I don't like him. Why? No, he's really good. Maybe you misunderstood him. She didn't misunderstand. She has a sixth sense. She doesn't like him. Stay away. Tested and proven. Now, Alexander had a wife that hated his teacher and said that he's full of it. He's a liar. Alexander wouldn't have it. Gave his teacher Aristotle all types of freedom. Freedom to be in the palace whenever he wanted. And one of these days, Aristotle came on to Alexander the Great's wife. And she was a smart woman. She says, well, listen, I'm interested. After everything I've heard about you, I'm impressed by you, but I'm not a regular woman. If I'm going to do this, It has to be worth it. I have to get what I want. Aristotle and his filthy desires, the very same Aristotle that said that touching, intimacy is disgusting, disgraceful. Anything you want, he says to her. What do you want? Money? She goes, no, I have all the money in the world. What could I give you? I want you to fulfill my fantasy. What fantasy is that? I want you to let me ride you like a horse. Without clothes. Aristotle goes, what? What? Yeah, I want to ride you like, give me a little, like a pony ride around the room. He says, okay, sure. Okay, let's do it. When? They decided on a time together, certain day, certain time. Then this wise woman says to her husband, again, your teacher Aristotle is full of it. He's a liar. You shouldn't listen to him. He says, no, again, woman. He says, I can prove it to you. He says that touching and intimacy is disgraceful and you should stay away from women. You should stay from this, stay from that, right? He himself is like a dog. He himself is going to do anything that a woman would tell him to do. Alexander says, no, lady, listen. You're going against my teacher too far. She goes, I can prove it to you. Alexander now you got my interest. What do you mean you can prove it to me? He says, I can prove it to you. But you have to promise me you're not going to hurt me. He says, no problem. Prove it to me. He says, okay, show up to this place at this time. So, that's what they set up. At that time, Aristotle is excited like a dog that just saw a female dog. He removes his clothes. He's excited because he thinks of all the horrible things that he wrote against. The queen jumps on the little pony and he gives her a little tour around the room. Tour. And Alexander the Great and his soldiers break into the room, looking into it and seeing his teacher that until now he practically worshipped him. Seeing his teacher act worse than a dog. He refrained, he held himself back from killing him on the spot, and he told him, if you were my teacher, I would kill you. But you have to leave. And he exiled him, he had to go away. And years later, Aristotle discovered the Torah from one of the Jewish sages, realized that all of his life's work is completely false. The Torah is the truth. And he wrote a letter to his student, or in essence, former student, Alexander the Great, telling him, don't read my work anymore. Don't follow anything that I said. In fact, everybody that would listen to what I said will get punished. Because the truth is with the Torah. So while Aristotle and people like him, philosophers like him, pretend to know the purpose, pretend to be above the average folks, pretend to be something superior, without Torah, a person is an animal at best. At best, they're like an animal. At worst, much worse than an animal. An animal only kills either for survival from an enemy or survival to eat. An animal procreates for procreation. A person can kill for pleasure. Can kill someone that's not an enemy. Can kill someone that's not even threatening them. Can kill knowing that they have no benefit and in fact only a negative would come out of it. In fact, they could develop even a lust to kill, to rape, to do all of the most awful things in the world, thereby making a person worse than an animal. But like I said, without Torah, at best they're like an animal. Because the only way that a person can elevate themselves above the animal is through the way of God. And that's why the Rambam says, if you don't, then in essence you're following what Aristotle said. You're disgraceful. Even the one thing that you can make yourself superior to the animal, you're not doing. So it is disgraceful for you that your whole act is just simply like an animal. You're like the same like a lion or a wildebeest or a pig. So there's really no difference between you and them. Just make sure you don't murder, so at least you're not worse than an animal. But if a person wants to elevate themselves and go in the way of the prophets, of the holy people, of the righteous people, even if you already know now there's no way in the world you can ever reach Moshe Rabbeinu's level and no one ever can, and there's no way you could ever reach Yaakov Avinu and no one else can, still you can go in their directions and follow their footsteps and elevate yourselves to a much higher level than where you are today. And that's in essence one of the things that a person has to comprehend, that the issues of unity between a man and his wife are so extraordinary that HaKodesh Baruch Hu could not have possibly made them repulsive. Because while sight and taste and hearing and smell are enjoyed by man more than an animal, it's touch that Aristotle called the disgrace, that is actually the holiest one, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose to give life to this world. He doesn't give life to the world due to sight or through sight, due to taste or through taste, due to hearing, due to smell. How is he giving this world life? Through touch. So it cannot be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world that needs to exist through something disgusting, that has disgusting tools, that was created disgusting and is going to give existence to only disgusting things. That's not possible. So how do you explain the last part of our question, which is, if intimacy is technically supposed to be the holiest of all senses, the holiest of all ways that a person can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it can be that. How could there be so much immorality in the world? Why does God allow it? Homosexuality, promiscuity, pedophilia, all this disgusting behavior that you see in the streets. Women dressing like prostitutes and dressing their kids accordingly. Yet they complain that the teachers are teaching them about pornography in high school and in junior high school and even in kindergarten. The girl is going to school like she just came out of some nightclub, even though she's 6 years old, yet her mom dares to complain that the teacher is teaching her about her future profession, at least with the way she looks. So how could it be that I'm supposed to be here with holiness, but yet there's so much impurity everywhere? Where most people are hearing that intimacy is supposed to be this type of holiness for the first time in their life through these shuim. How could it be? Now, of course, Rabotai, the mysteries of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are beyond our comprehension. But yet, we certainly can learn from the different things that He has done, the different things that He has shown us, has taught us, through our sages, through His Torah, of His ways, and follow those footsteps in order to arrive at a very, very simple conclusion. That it's all part of the system and the ultimate purpose. Where if you see anyone that learns Torah quickly learns that there's a beginning of the world, Adam HaRishon and Chava. The next climatic point is at the time of Noach, where HaKodesh Baruch Hu showed us he doesn't need the world. He could simply destroy it and create a whole new thing if he wants, or not create. He doesn't need the world. The next climatic point is that he doesn't desire to destroy the world. So if it's just one thing that's under control and it's not the whole world, he'll just destroy that, such as the Tower of Babel. And the next climatic point, he shows us that how valuable a righteous person is, that he will allow an entire generation of wicked people to survive just for the sake of this righteous person that will be born, named Avraham, that will have enough merit and righteousness that he will create a nation from him, that to this nation he will give the Torah that's the ultimate climax of the world, that it will give the ultimate instruction to the world in order to reach the climax of existence altogether. So Avraham gives birth to Yitzchak, and Yitzchak to Yaakov, and Yaakov to the 12 tribes. But they have to go through a whole new level of suffering, of a Holocaust in Egypt. And that's the next climatic point in history. A history that's without doubt. A history that has more documentation about it than even the Holocaust that was 70 years ago. And for the first time and last time in history, the slaves become the master. And not a single slave or even a small group of slaves, but an entire nation of slaves turn from being slaves to the most powerful nation in the world into the master. While their master was destroyed and annihilated by God. And then this nation receives the Torah in the only time in history that ever was and ever will be, that millions of people had divine revelation, saw the words and the sounds of God as a group, together. No other time did anyone ever even say that they saw God or heard his voice or saw his sounds as a group. Only little crazy people say they heard or saw on their own something that has no evidence and no witnesses. Whereas our nation received the Torah at Mount Sinai, all hearing the same thing, all seeing the same thing, and all being written in the book that they're receiving, thereby confirming that they all saw and they all heard, because all of them had to read it and follow it, that had there been even a single one of them that didn't hear one of the things that's written about him, or didn't see one of the things that is said that they saw, they would say, hey, listen, there's a mistake here, change that. You said we saw the voice of God. I didn't see anything. If there was one person that wouldn't see or wouldn't hear, the entire Torah would have a mistake in it. And certainly anybody that ever goes and shares a meal with a group of people, family, friends, goes to one of these talkative barbershops, goes to one of these places of work where people like to socialize, and you start a conversation about a so-called neutral issue, only to find quickly that as many people as you have there, that's usually as many opinions as you have, and everybody disagrees with everybody, and everyone thinks that they're right. And even if everyone saw the same exact thing, everyone will have a different perspective of what they saw. Yet in our Torah, this divine revelation is uniformly agreed, where everyone saw the same thing, everyone heard the same thing, and no one disagreed. That was the next climatic point in existence. So the person that's now learning Torah, learn about Adam HaRishon, the creation, learn about Noach, that the annihilation of pretty much useless people that are enemies of God, the mercy of God, where he doesn't want to punish everybody but just those sinners, the Tower of Babel, Sodom and Gomorrah, the righteous people, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the need for suffering in order to build something more special, suffering in Egypt for hundreds of years. The mercy of God, where the original decree was supposed to be over 400 years, being lowered to 216 years. The open miracles of getting food from heaven that can taste like anything you want, the manna. The divine revelation to an entire civilization of people, millions of people there saw it and heard it. And the entire world knew about it at the same time. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that everyone knew, without using the media, without using CNN and the rest of the heretics, anti-Torah liberals. And yet that person that's learning Torah is going to continue learning about other things that happen, other leaders. Whether it's King David and his desire to serve God at the highest possible level, to be the fourth one that's going to carry the Shekhinah with Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to want to build the house of God, but merit to have his son do it and he build the foundation. All of this, they will learn. Just to get to a point, which is that, where does it all end? And everyone will tell you, no matter what religion, it ends with the Messiah's arrival. Now, of course, the idolaters of Christianity and Catholicism will tell you that the Messiah came, he died, he's coming back again. My dog died about 10 years ago. Maybe he's coming back too with Jesus. The Muslims, they claim that some Messiah is going, even though they're enemies of the chosen people and enemies of God. But yet the chosen people themselves, the Jewish people, have always had the same exact tradition. When our Messiah comes, the whole world will know. The whole world will agree. The whole world will suffer the consequences. And only the righteous will survive. It'll be an event bigger than what happened before. Bigger than anything that happened before. Bigger than the miracles we saw in Egypt. Bigger than anything we can comprehend. The darkness plague in Egypt was 3 days. The darkness that will hit the world at the time of Mashiach is 15. The extraordinary things that will happen. But yet, this Messiah, this Mashiach, that's something that we all know about. What else do we know about this Mashiach? We know how he came. And through our knowledge of how he came to the world, we will know the answer of why HaKadosh Baruch Hu used intimacy as the one tool that you could reach the ultimate level of holiness, or the opposite. Why you could reach KEDUSHA despite a world full of immorality. You see, the Mashiach, anyone that learned a little bit, Mashiach didn't come easy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to hide him to different strange events that didn't look so good. The disgraceful people of Sodom and Gomorrah had the nephew of Avraham among them, Lot, who himself was not exactly a righteous person. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot committed incest with his daughters. They meant it for the right reasons. They thought the whole world is destroyed, like they heard about at the time of Noach. So they felt that they have to reproduce in order to bring more people to the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to bring Mashiach from their babies. From their babies, on both sides. The neshama of Mashiach went through there. Fast forward a little bit more. One of the sons of Yaakov, Yehuda, has 3 sons. The first one marries this tzadikah named Tamar, who was the daughter of Shem, the son of Noach. He was called now Melchizedek. This Tamar, this tzadikah, had prophecy knowing that Mashiach is going to come through Yehuda. So when she had the opportunity to marry his son, she was happy to do it. But his son was a Rasha, who didn't want to ruin her beauty by making her pregnant, or getting her pregnant. So, as the Torah tells us, he used to waste seed outside of her body. God saw his evil and killed him. So the Torah has a mitzvah called Yibum, where if a man that's married dies without children, if the woman wants, she could and the brother of that person that died wants, they can marry each other. It's a certain mitzvah. If not, they have to go through something called chalitza to release her, and then she can marry whoever she wants. So Tamar then married Yehuda's second son. He was also evil and wasted seed. And Hashem killed him too. From there we learned that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forbid wasting seed both for Jews and Gentiles. And also punished people even if they were early age. As the Zohar HaKadosh says that they were 8 years old. This Tamar still has our prophecy and knows that the Mashiach is going to come through Yehuda. She wants to be a part of this ultimate purpose of the world. So she pretends to be a prostitute in order to get Yehuda to be with her after his wife dies. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes over his Yetzer Hara, if you will, and pushes him to be with this prostitute, what he thought was a prostitute. Something that Yehuda wouldn't have done otherwise. So this was looked at as, why incest, prostitute, Mashiach? Why? Fast forward more. Batsheva, tzadikah, KEDUSHA. She married, her husband goes to war. At that time, the decree was by King David that anyone that goes to war has to give his wife a get, divorce, if he comes back to get married again. King David marries Batsheva after Uriah dies. Uriah Hitti. This whole story is looked on unfavorably by people that saw from the outside. Kind of seemed like maybe King David stole her from him. Maybe King David killed him on purpose. Wasn't viewed in a nice way. But the Gemara Masechet Shabbat says anyone that says that King David sinned is mistaken. This was what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. From there comes Shlomo HaMelech. And from Shlomo HaMelech, Mashiach. So the question is, why? Why through all of these unusual, and seemingly ugly relationships, if you will. Why through this would the holy Mashiach come from that? Why? Couldn't God just bring him in some, great tradition, like something amazing? Why through Ruth, the Moabite, that our grandmother was committed incest with our father Lot, who Ruth was the grandmother of King David? Why? Why do I have to go through? Why can't I come through a natural born Jew, someone that there's no question about them, someone that's this, someone that's that, someone that had a long marriage, not a one-day marriage? She was married to Boaz for 1 day. He died. He was very old. They consummated the marriage. He died the next day. She had a baby. That's where Mashiach comes from. All of the different parents of that in essence transferred the Mashiach from generation to generation have been the most unusual of stories. Why? The sages teach us, if you want to transfer a treasure, a very valuable treasure, from one place to another, you can do it in 2 ways. One way is common sense. A lot of guards, a lot of weapons, a lot of preparation. But the truth is that all of that is going to publicize this treasure. And if someone has the ability to overcome your soldiers, your weapons, your power, they're going after you. Even if their odds are small, even if their odds are unlikely, still, they may even be willing to join their enemies just for the sake of sharing that treasure. The other approach is take that big treasure and put it in a garbage bag. Put it in a garbage bag. Looks smelly. Looks ugly. Give it to some homeless guy. Doesn't look like much. Some guy that no one even wants to be next to him, needless to say, to check what's in his bag. Let him walk right through the town. Your treasure will get to where it needs to get to. HaKodesh Baruch Hu has a treasure. He has a treasure. That neshama of Mashiach has to get to its destination. But there's going to be all types of interference. The Satan is going to do everything possible to interfere, to prosecute against. No, it shouldn't come from him. He's not righteous enough. No, it shouldn't come from him. He's not this. He's not that. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, let me hide it from him. Let me hide it from anyone. Let me hide it. Why? He's going to look at this. This is prostitution. No way that Mashiach is coming from here. He's going to look at this and say, no, this is incest. No way Mashiach is coming from here. He's going to look at this. Look, this looks like it's adultery. No way is it coming from here. This is a convert. No way is it coming from this. This is no way is it coming from this. No way is it coming from that. HaKodesh Baruch Hu has a treasure, and he says, I'm going to transfer it throughout all of the generations until it'll arrive, and you will see how beautiful the path that I made is. From there, Rabotai Karim, we get our answer. Why does HaKodesh Baruch Hu allow all of this immorality in the world? All of this promiscuity throughout all of the generations, needless to say the one we're in. All of this immodesty, all of this filth, all over the place. Because all of that filth is like the garbage bag that's covering the treasure that's called KEDUSHA. KEDUSHA that you can have with your spouse if you would only listen to the sages and follow the steps to the best of your ability each and every day without a break. Each and every day without giving up. Each and every single day without exerting even more effort. Sometimes that effort is going to be a better Jew, be more generous, be more humble, be more studious, be more committed, pray better, sanctify yourself. And sometimes it's going to be help your spouse out. Maybe cook, clean, take care of the kids, relieve some of the pressure. But ultimately, learn how to become a kadosh during those moments, before, during, and after the act. Learn how to be kadosh during that time. And that's how you can achieve KEDUSHA and be part of that treasure, despite all the garbage that's covering it. Because when that treasure is finally exposed, it'll impact all of the worlds that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in his creation. This world that we're in and the upper worlds. And when you really see the beautiful picture that he painted, the beautiful path that he created from that single act that you achieved maybe once in your life or a bunch of times, you'll understand why it was all worth it. And there was no other better way for him to do it. Yeh Ratzon, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give each and every one of us the inspiration, the wherewithal, and most importantly, the correct knowledge about our Torah and its sages to go in the right path and attain one step closer to achieving KEDUSHA in our lives, in our marriages, in our servitude of Hashem. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see each other again tomorrow night in a different series of Stump the Rabbi. Those of you that want to contribute to our organization, whether it's for the film or for the other things, can simply do it on our websites, bezrathashem.org or bhtorah.org, or the many other websites out there. And also there's a new way to do it through YouTube by pressing, I think, join or subscribe. There's a few different features where you could simply pay a monthly fee that's just simply like a donation. There's plenty of ways for a person to contribute if they really want it. This too is another way to show Hashem that we want to be holy. And being holy means that we have to publicize more Torah. And Baruch Hashem, that's what we're trying to do. Skuli Mitzvot, thank you again for learning with me. And B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see each other tomorrow.
There are no shortcuts. No tricks, no magic. The very cave you fear possesses the cure you seek. Go within. Just know, once you cross that threshold, there is only one way out.
There was a rich family that lived here called the Hetheringtons, and unfortunately, their daughter passed away of a heart attack inside the house. Basically, they were so devastated that they reached out to people claiming to be psychic mediums. They actually weren't psychic mediums. They opened up a total of 11 portals inside this house and invited spirits and entities from all different kinds of dimensions.
Well, I think there are certain pieces of evidence that there is an afterlife.
Resurrection of the dead is affirmed pretty clearly in the Talmud and the Midrash.
To be honest with you, to give this lecture is a nightmare. If it was up to me, I wouldn't. There's going to be some graphic details.
This place is a maze.
That person after death went to a place called Sheol.
This is by far the largest near-death experience study that has ever been conducted.
People go to a place and they experience weird things. And sometimes they actually will see a character of some type. Well, where did that come from?
I don't know why that one chain is swinging back there.
They may describe feeling profoundly peaceful, seeing a bright, warm, welcoming light, Some people describe watching doctors and nurses working on them with incredible accuracy.
Next thing I knew, I was above my body watching the operation.
How long did you feel like you were gone?
I went to a place of timelessness. And so what that means, it could have been a second, could have been 5 minutes. I don't know.
Can you imagine waking up from your sleep and not being able to move?
As I'm lying there, I realized that there's an evil presence next to me.
Do you believe that angels, demons exist?
Holy shit, dude, get out of here! Oh my god, dude!
Strange things keep happening. Bizarre nightmares, as if I'm on fire in the woods.
Whoa, what the hell is this? Man, I've got bad chest pain.
Satan's Hollow is what it's called, the portal to hell.
Some people calling it an eye of fire, while others said it looked like the portal to hell opening up.
And the next thing I know, I was outside of my body, looking at my body.
What I'm going to do is called claromancy, the art of throwing lots or throwing bones.
2,000 years of experience, passed down, recorded, of how demons work.
God has them all on a leash, and he lets the leash go enough to let them tempt us, because that's what makes us spiritually stronger.
I'm trying to be as graphic as possible so you understand what we're talking about.
It's your ticket to reality. It's your ticket to freedom. It's your ticket to immortality.
Is there an afterlife? Is there a
It's
God?
the type of information that can keep you away from the Yitzhak.
What happens to us after we die?